So I've been thinking about what Rhett Elaine has been working on, bouncing sticks, and I'm so excited to see what he does with that dropping ladder because what he's shown so far is how to deal with how a single rung can bounce, and it's super cool. And of course, the next tough part is how do you sort of connect them in ways where the strings can sort of coil up, but not but pull down if they get taut. So I'm really excited to see what he does with that. But I was just playing around a little bit and realized that I wanted to try to have friction or some energy loss a little bit different way than the way he did it. So what I'm doing here is making the bar just be a couple of balls. Let me show you the balls. Let's see here. Oops. Gotta run this. There we go. So I've just got a couple of balls connected by a spring, and I've just made this spring be really strong so that it holds this length constant. Basically, it's such a strong spring that even when it hits the floor, it hardly compresses at all. So it's just a quick way to have these things fixed. So that's what's going on with this. A really, really strong spring, spring constant 1,000. This is basically the length of the distance between the balls. That's what this dot product right here is doing. And then subtracting, I'm saying that the regular length of the spring, or the distance between the balls, will just be 1. And so that distance squared is 1/2 k, call it delta x squared, is the spring potential energy. Kinetic energy is just a fancy way of writing all of the dots squared. So x1 of dot squared, x2 dot squared, y1 dot squared, y2 dot squared. That's what this complicated thing does here. So the potential energy is just the height of the balls, no problem there. I'm assuming that the spring is massless, so I don't have any potential energy, gravitational potential energy from there. But here's the thing that I'm doing for potential energy loss. So there's something. Oh no, sorry, this is, I spoke too soon. This is my power loss. I'll get to that in a second. This is just how I'm bouncing. So I'm basically saying if either ball gets less than 0, so I'm putting the ground at 0. If it's less than 0, then have a pretty powerful spring bouncing it back up again, because then its potential energy would be 1/2 that variable squared, with a k constant right now of 200. And I can futz with that a little bit. And so I just do that for both of the balls. So if either ball goes below 0, then it'll just be pushed back up again. And then, of course, I have the spring potential energy. Okay, so how do I do the energy loss? So I have this fric function, and this is what's called the power function approach, where you basically, if you want a velocity-dependent dissipation term, you basically put in a term that looks an awful lot like kinetic energy with some term in front of it. Right now I'm just chosen 0.1 to have some amount of energy loss. And what I'm saying is, look, if the ball is below the ground, so it's kind of penetrated into the ground, while it moves down there, I want it to lose energy, even if it moves horizontally. So certainly if it moves vertically, I want it to lose a little bit of energy. But even if it sort of skids left to right, I want it to lose energy. Now I want to be clear, this is not like static friction, because that's independent of velocity. This is more like air resistance. So it's just I know computationally it's a straightforward way to do it. That's why I'm doing it. But I want to show you what it does, because there's a subtlety that is kind of strange. So then I just pick an initial angle of the particle, and I just put, well, you'll see the picture. So if I run it, here's what I get. So I'm just going to run it until it bounces. There. So it would bounce, right? Seems to work fine. And in fact, if I plot, do I have it? Yeah, here's, I'll just play the whole movie. So it definitely bounces, and each ball does its own thing. What's interesting is after the first bounce, so both balls hit the ground. You might think, well, both balls are going to hit the ground with the same speed. So you'd think that they would both just go right back up at the same way. Maybe the angle will get reversed, but watch here. So on this side of things, it's going up. Notice the angle's different, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's actually, oh yeah, the angle's getting smaller and smaller. So the two bounces are different, and I think it's because after this bounce, right when this one's about to bounce, this one gets slammed down to the ground, and so it hits harder. So it comes back up higher too. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. I'm pretty sure that's correct. But here's the problem. Notice that it sort of moves to the right. It's moving to the right. The only way that's going on is there must be some force in the x direction. And the only term that's in the x direction is going to come from this friction terms, specifically when I say that even if you move in the x direction when you're below the ground, if you're moving in the x direction, I'm going to fight against you. That's what this minus sign right here says. I'm going to fight against you. So if I plot the variables, all of these variables, so y1, y2, x1, x1. So here's the bounces, the blue and the orange, they're bouncing. And if you look here, they really do penetrate the ground for just a little bit. And notice that each ball, except for this bounce, which is interesting, all the other bounces, each ball does its thing and completes its bounce before the other one even gets there. So at least at first, and certainly where this this trend of let's move to the right, which is what this orange line and green line are showing, both of those seem to happen after the very first bounce. So I don't think it has to do with when both balls are down in there. So I don't think this is right. Certainly this sort of viscous velocity when you penetrate the ground doesn't feel right. I just did it because it was easy. But I'm just curious if you guys thought that might ever be possible. Could you drop something, and because of some friction, it would gain a little bit of horizontal velocity? So that's my question for you. I think it might happen even if I put in the right type of friction, but I just wanted to get your thoughts.